So thank you so much to our community team member for reminding that. Awesome. So yes, so as mentioned, creativity has also actually become a competitive advantage, right? In a sense that it could allow members of an organization to generate ideas faster and better. Hence, many teams within organizations are trying to now kind of sift through different tools, different processes that can structure this within the organization and make it faster and better. Yeah, so they are not behind the trend and they are not behind in the market. Yeah, so there's many people working on creativity, but I wanted to bring you actually some of the work of Rob Jobkins, because he's truly inspirational in a sense that he is a creative person himself, but he has worked a lot with organizations in how they can become more creative. He's from the United States. So those of you that are from USA, be proud. This man is wonderful. And as I mentioned, I put you there some of his books that are available. And he has lots of tools, tips, recommendations, and even cases that he has gone through with organizations that I found quite fascinating. The important thing is, like, if you're trying to generate creativity within your organization or kind of catalyze it, to not think that, well, maybe I'm not the best because I'm not the artist or whatever, but just actually think of yourself that as someone that can generate it if just you put into practice those tools, you learn it, and you keep on improving your approach to it. So here you have a cool quote that says, thinking creatively is not a professional activity. Yeah, creativity is not about creating a painting, a novel, or a noble house, but creating yourself, right? And this is something that it's brought in this book of the art of creative thinking, that basically says, look, if you're curious, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to try out things, if you're willing to embrace an approach and share it with others, you're already a creative mind. And actually, we need more people like you that are willing to take risks, be curious, keep on learning. Those that we call the learner-alls, not the know-it-alls, right? And that actually wants to get hands-on with things and try it out with others. So if you're that, start thinking of yourself as a creative person. And that's fabulous. Okay. And yeah, I think many of you are actually that already. Yeah. So let's come back to a key question here. What are the top problems that you're facing and that brought you to this session of creativity? We will use this actually to feed into the session. So feel free there to share with each other. What are those top problems that you're facing that you think that creativity, if you learn some tools, can help you with? Okay. So great. So some of you are putting communication. So that's good feedback, because that means that when we go through the tools, maybe we can see how we could use those tools for communication. So maybe they're the Disney strategy could work for some of these things. We will see. Any other problem that some of you are facing and that you think that creativity tools could support you? Okay. Agile baggage, they do Agile somewhere and they think it is how it should work. Okay. Yeah, lack of ideas. This is something that in our organization we face too. Psychological safety. Okay, very interesting. So how could we use maybe creativity for psychological safety? So maybe some of the tools like brain silent writing, Charlotte, we will see might be useful for you. Refining user stories. Okay, so that's actually more technical. Let's see if some of the creativity tools can help on that. Maybe more the creativity process that we're going to go through, for example, the Canon model can help with having more refined user-centric stories, right? And that have impact in the customer. So that's good. Lack of enthusiasm, bad communication. So communication seems to be something working together without completing. Okay, so how we complete. So maybe they're keeping people through creativity kind of like aligned, and we will see aligned and motivated. We will see some techniques that are actually quite cool for this. So the TRIS process will work for you. We will see that. Collaborating, gathering objectives for shaping projects, sharing and building skills remotely. Okay, collaboration, finding clients or new channels to talk to them. All right, so as you see, each of you are leading, of course, different transformation process and teams in your organization, and hence different challenges there. Hopefully you have a chance to see the map of your team members here in the community. Okay, great. And may I ask you from this balance, what is the biggest pain that you're having? Feel free to share it there very, very briefly. I think we could be ready then to kick it off. Okay. Yeah, I have that pain too. You're super right. Waterfall married with Agile. But let's also remember sometimes that waterfall makes sense for some processes, right? Sometimes we want to make everything Agile. And even within the process theory, it tells us that, you know, Agile, it's for things that are highly uncertain, complex, and we need constant development with the customer. But for things that are well-known, streamlined, and that don't need that feedback, sometimes waterfall is the best approach. It's crazy, right? But sometimes we're trying also to use Agile for some things that don't work for it. But definitely, if your team and your organization are in that complexity and uncertainty, and you know that they need Agile and you have the waterfall, it's a pain. It's a terrible pain. Yes. So also lots of organizational dynamics there, right? That also generate. All right, guys, thank you for that. Now, let's kick off the session on Agile creativity. And the first thing that we have to maybe think as a community is, what are we understanding for Agile creativity? And this is important that we ask each other and we share, because as you know, we're going to share here knowledge about it, and the ideas that we give today are not that stone, in a sense that you can question them and you can destroy them, basically. Okay, so this is creative destruction, what we're going to engage with. So may I ask you, what do you understand for Agile creativity? When you sign up for the meetup and you said, you know what, I want to learn about Agile creativity, what were your thoughts about this? What do you think it is? Okay, how to get done. Okay, that's very interesting. So we're starting there to kind of see. Anyone else? Being open, discovering, and how to experiment, how to finish a sprint effectively. All right. So a lot of you actually finish it with the doing, you know, of the way of doing things. Yes, structured brainstorming, doing in a more innovative and effective way. All right. So that's pretty cool. So just to start, kick it off as you guys start sharing here, creative and open to ideas. Awesome. Ideas to experiment and explore. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So something that we discussed in one of the meetups is that when we're talking about Agile, sometimes we focus on the Agile frameworks, okay, or in the Agile ways of working. So that means that sometimes we're just talking of Agile as Scrum, Kanban, Safe. We limit the conversation of agility to Agile frameworks. Yeah. And we discussed that Agile frameworks are great once we explore them and we evaluate which one works better for our organization, because they might help us to do things right. We discussed, though, that sometimes it's not important only to do things right, but to do the right things right. Yes. And how do we know we're doing the right thing? Yes. And that was kind of like the key question, right? Because the promise of agility, actually, from a big point of view, is not limited to the promise that the Agile frameworks give, right? So Scrum, Safe, Kanban, all of them have a value proposition for you as frameworks to enhance the doing right of work in your organization, right? But how do we know that we're doing the right thing? So this is where alternative approaches come to help. Creativity that sometimes is associated to process as design thinking and innovation or systemic thinking are alternative tools that we can use to make sure that we do not only things right, but the right thing. And this is why we decided to bring to the meetup what we call Agile creativity. Agile creativity is going to be the stream of tools that supports teams within organization in the exploration of the right thing to do. And furthermore, to enhance and improve the way in which they're doing things. So the very interesting thing about creativity is that it doesn't only help in the determination of the right thing to do, but also in the improvement of the right ways of doing. So we're going to overview all of these tools, and this is kind of like the reason why. We mentioned that it's agile creativity because it's iterative, right? Within an organization, these tools, you have to iterate on them, okay? Explore them, evaluate them within the team, get the feedback in order to make sure that they work the best way for the problem that you want to solve, okay? So once again, we wanted to bring agile creativity because within the meetup, we are very focused also on the understanding of how do we make sure that our organizations, as they go agile, they don't only do things the right way, but they do the right things for their customers, their markets, and their internal associates, sometimes called employees, okay? So may I ask you, what are some of the techniques that you know that are maybe associated to agile creativity? If you have some, do you want to share them here? Because we're going to go today through several tools, but maybe some of you already know it. And I'm interested to see which are the tools that you know or techniques in terms of creativity. Anyone wants to share? Uh-huh. All right, burn down and up charts, great. This is for the measurement of our sprint and how are we performing across it, amazing. Retrospective as a springboard, great. Retrospectives are also great to generate improvements, new ideas, new solutions, especially there's different types of retrospective that can help with that. Fantastic. Any other techniques or tools? Okay. Mirror. All right. So we're starting to talk about the technologies that might leverage our creativity techniques, right? So sometimes you have Mirror, you have Jamboard, you have Mural. There are technologies that can support creative process. That's great that you mentioned it. I will make sure to show some cases with Miro so you get out of here with some ideas, okay? Kind of out of it, like jungle ideations, the failure parties, movie motivators. I will make sure to share that with you guys. Design thinking toolbox, many amazing. I love design thinking. Maybe you will intervene in the part that we go briefly over design thinking. Is such a complex topic and so good and rich that we're actually going to have just a session on it. But I would love for whoever shared this part of design thinking to jump in when we talk about a creative process, which is design thinking. So I would love for you to please step in and share your knowledge. Subtraction, division, and multiplication as explaining inside the box. Oh, right, and coaching. Perfect. So a lot of techniques, as you can see, that you can share as members of the community with each other, yes, to leverage your knowledge. Super. So let's go then directly, if it's okay with you, to the Agile creativity techniques. So I will share once again this link for those of you that are just entering, okay, because you may not have it, and we will start then to overview the different, okay, links. So for those of you that just joined, okay, all right, here we go. Do please join me here. And what I did is that I initially put for you here what we call some agile creativity tools, okay? And then what we call some agile processes to enhance creativity in our organizations. The first warning here is that, as I mentioned, these are processes that you need to iterate and are incremental, Yes, as you start engaging it with your team members, they will get more savvy and they even will give it their own touch and they become more useful. Yes, so as the organization engage more with them, the power of these tools is even greater. Yeah, so I'm seeing that several of you are already there. So we will kind of like kick it off if it's okay with the areas of the tools. Yeah. So one of the first tools, they seem very simple, but actually sometimes we don't do them properly. So they are very, very simple, but sometimes we don't do it. So many of you have come across with our typical brainstorming. Yeah. Can someone share with us what are kind of the typical pitfalls that we have with brainstorming? Anyone wants to share? Because this is a challenge that many of you might have faced when we run a brainstorming. Brainstormings are great tools to enhance creativity within our organizations, right? They have a long story. If any of you had a chance to check out the story of the brainstorming, one of the first executives that put it into practice was called Alex Osborne. He had a great book, which was called Applied Imagination. And in Applied Imagination, he really goes into detail on all the rules that a brainstorming should have. And you start seeing, damn, I think I'm not doing my brainstorming. Okay. Yes. So we're gonna just run through those. But can anyone share with me, what are some of what is brainstorming and what are some of the pitfalls that you have noticed in it? Anyone wants to share?
Yeah, I'll start with a pitfall. I mean, I hosted a brainstorming session with my team. It started with how we improve our agile processes to, the Iraq war. Somehow it ended up into. So I don't know where the discussion started from and how it went into a different context altogether. But that's where the problem happens when brainstorming starts, and then to keep them within the boundary, or others or hatefully saying the word scope, it becomes difficult. But yeah.
That's right. So thank you, Mahat. You're right. So that's one of the problems sometimes. Like our team members bring wonderful idea, but it ends up sometimes even going to other topics that we were not trying to tackle at that moment, right? So it turns kind of hard. Anyone else wants to share other pitfalls or any other challenges that they have faced with their brainstorming?
The shy members also don't get to speak up. So you have a few dominating the conversation, and the other creative aspects are not captured because they are too shy or too introverted to speak up. That's another.
Totally. So that's another issue that we face, right? So sometimes in brainstorming within what we call unhelpful group behaviors, what we have as one of the examples is some team members that are quite extrovert and are quite good at voicing out their ideas can take the session, right? And those that might be a little more introvert but equally have great ideas, they might decide not to voice them out. So within the brainstorming, this gets a little bit lost and we don't have that gems, that input that is could be so powerful. Yeah. So then let's go very briefly once again about brainstorming. As you see, brainstorming allows you to generate many ideas very fast. And that's kind of like why it was created. Initially, it was thought, and I took these notes from the book of Applied Imagination. I really liked it because it goes to the origin, right? It was kind of like created to be a relaxed, informal approach to problem solving. Okay. Hence, this is kind of the tool that you can use if you're looking for something like this, right? So you have to know what you want to just pick the right tool. So if you're looking to put team members in a relaxed and informal way to kind of just think about the problem, okay, brainstorming can work for it, especially if you don't have too much of a focus on the output, you know, like I really need a great output out of this session. Yeah, if you are willing to let people come with, you know, crazy ideas that are quite of original and to build on top of each other. Yeah, because that's the most powerful thing about brainstorming, that whatever one team member says, another one builds on top of that, and the other one builds on top of that. But sometimes what we have is everyone just saying all the ideas, right? So that's very different. Originally, what Alex Osborne was looking with the brainstorming is for a session in which people build on the idea that the others put forward. Okay, so it was building on top of those ideas that each had put forward. And the other thing is that it's very important to manage it properly, in a sense that you make sure that in that environment, there's not criticism, there's not rewarding. And as you all mentioned, that there's not a few team members taking up the conversation. Yeah. So usually some of the recommendations given for a brainstorming to actually work, in a sense that it becomes a powerful creative process, is that you combine individual sharing with what you call group sharing, right? Group brainstorming. So a good brainstorming actually has these two elements that are combined together and that complement each other. You have a moment in which each person individually has a chance to share their ideas, and then you have a moment in which there's a group creation. On those individual ideas shared, the groups decides to build on top of some of them, and they ideate on them, right? So that's actually kind of like a process to maximize not only the number of ideas that can come up from all the individuals, but the quality of the ideas that are generated. Okay. So some key challenges that all of you as leaders in this creative process have to be aware of is, you know, what is that preparation that you do for the brainstorming? As some of you mentioned, it's very hard sometimes to keep it in a scope. Well, it turns out that by giving a good brief and kind of working rules for the session, like a good preparation for the session, sometimes can help us also put team members in a very aligned and give them clarity of what is the expectation or the output that we're seeking as we come together to work on, right? So that preparation is important. The second thing, be very good on the presentation of the problem. What is the problem statement that as a team you're trying to solve? This is sometimes another issue that emerges. We do not state the problem correctly. We do not co-create that statement problem. Hence, when we come to the session, people start even questioning the problem statement, right? So those are kind of some pitfalls that emerge when we don't set up this creative session properly. Yeah, so having a co-created and agreed problem statement for team members to work on is super important. Then to make sure that you guide the discussion, but you let them lead the solutions, yeah, and lead that too. So be a container rather than the protagonist of the whole conversation. Many brainstormings also go wrong because many of the facilitators or the change leaders actually are some of the ones that monopolize the conversation, right? So this is also very important to give the team members that. The other thing is that some brainstormings also usually kind of stop only on like people putting the idea or team members, groups picking some of those ideas and building on top of them, and that's it. They just do building, and they don't go to the next part, which is actually also part of a brainstorming. And sometimes we forget, which has to do with all the part of organizing the ideas, right? Filtering those ideas. There's different techniques to kind of find the themes, the clusters, or the groupings of those ideas, which are very important because then this allows team members to achieve what we want from that brainstorming. That is that without not only those ideas, but actually for them to be clear on what can be those next steps, right? So that's the other final part associated to this brainstorming of the next steps, which is taking action, as was originally called or mentioned by Alex Osborne, and some of the tools that you have there is those affinity diagrams, as I mentioned, or decision matrix analysis, or something that is called also kind of like multi-voting on the ideas that people like the most. Okay. So as you see, brainstorming, has some steps that we have to be aware of, so have some pitfalls, and it is definitely one alternative to promote creativity within the organization, but it has those pitfalls. Yes. Sometimes people monopolize that conversation. Sometimes problem statements are not clear. Sometimes next steps are not agreed. And those are things to watch for when you are leading this creative tool. Now, the good news for some of you is that we have another creative tool that is actually called Brainwriting. Okay. And this kind of emerged actually as a solution to some of the problems that occur in a normal brainstorming. And Brainwriting is usually considered kind of like a complement or an alternative method. It depends how you see it, if you're doing it together or if you're treating it separately, right? But I see it as an alternative method to brainstorming. I use it a lot with my teams. I really love it. It really allows you for rapid idea generation. Some of you might have worked with it. I really love it, as I mentioned. It has less of the traditional pitfalls associated to brainstorming. For example, in my case, it allows all my team members, independent of their personality, to put forward their ideas, and for these ones to be considered, acknowledged, explore, and then decide if they are the ones that can be used for the problem resolution. Okay. There are different ways, though, to approach brainwriting, especially now in these online days. Is very important for you to be aware of. You have different tools that could allow you to do brainwriting. You have the Miro, you have the Mural, you have the Jamboard, you have many tools, right? So you have to kind of like make sure that you pick the right technology that allows you to do that. Initially, the steps is like each person will write down their ideas in a response to the problem statement that is given. Yes, in this case, this digital post-its, people create their post-its and they write down their ideas within the timing that is given. Give them a time span, okay? Don't let them span on time. Give them, this is the time box for this. Yes, so each person writes down their idea and their response in the time box given. When they finish, they usually have a chance to share, okay, with others those ideas. Each of them can share with each other those ideas. And once they have the full round, everyone knows what each other's ideas are. Usually they can group them, cluster them, and filter them, both on the things that they're more interested about. Okay. So it tends to generate kind of like less anxiety. There's less problem in terms of the competing personalities that are in the room. It allows within the time span that you give and be rational about the time also to have more diverse idea, and it kind of saves you from the group thinking approach. Yeah. Can someone tell me what can be some of the pitfalls that still we will face in brain writing? I know some of you are already thinking about it, and let's see what you think. What is the most time effective time box for a brainstorming and brainwriting? Great question. So it will depend actually on the problem statement that you have. Yes. Meaning with this, that if there are things, associated like with new products, ideation of new products, you might not want to give people 2 minutes to think about, different new products. You might want to give them a bit more time, 7-10 minutes, and actually even break them in different groups. So it depends a lot, Leo, on the problem statement, okay, that is going to guide that session. I'll give you an example. When I do sometimes a brainwriting for some of my retrospective, and we are going to explore, a key bottleneck that emerged in the sprint. When we are exploring the bottleneck, and we want to ideate how to solve it, I usually give my team members up to 4 minutes right? Which actually for some facilitators, it might seem little, but I give them 4 minutes. So each individually have 4 minutes. They put the little stickers in the mirror. Yes. Then after those 4 minutes, each of them share that idea, and I give them the space for them to share. And then I ask them to, if they see any cluster or any themes, they cluster, they make the themes. And after they make those themes and they even come up with the categories, we try to select which are the ones that we think have the biggest impact, are more feasible, okay, for them to achieve, okay, and we generate the lower cost also. So they also filter those solutions to the bottlenecks, and then they say what are going to be the next steps. They set their actions for it. So it depends a lot, Leo, on the problem statement that you're trying to solve with a creative tool. Okay. Bear also in mind that there's a there's a point in which the return of timing is lower. Yeah, usually, usually if you give people like top 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, actually people are not thinking anymore of ideas. You will see it has happened to me as a facilitator, but I'm happy for other team members here in the community to share their experience. It has been my experience either with executive line managers or team members that are building, or product owners or scrum masters, that usually if I give them more than 7 minutes, after 7 minutes, they're not generating more ideas. They did it in the first minutes, they were on it, but yeah, after 7 minutes, like they stopped and they need kind of to regroup, and then you can give them a little bit more time and they come to think again. I don't know, has anyone have here other experience, anything that they want to share in terms of the timing? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone wants to share there? And also we're going to go with Aaron's question. All right. So Chiti, do you want to share something about the timing? Okay, I think not. All right, so let's see. Gotta go. Okay, super. So we have a question with Aaron that says, why do we create so much control over the creativity process? Why can't we have multiple iterations, weeks, months? Who cares how long it actually takes if there hasn't been creativity for years or decades already? What is the cost of more time to develop great functional ideas? Well, I think this is, yes, it's a comment from Aaron, that like why to create control. I think here we're not creating control. What we're putting is tools that at the end people own, as you say, and when they own that tool, there's something that pops out of it, right? What we want to make sure is to support the organization when they ask, well, what can we use to think, that we just put the tools there, and they use it as they want, and they can bring even new tools, right? So yeah, definitely. I don't know if there a thing of controlling more than just putting options and people can pick those or bring new options. But definitely we do not want to control the creative process. We want to facilitate it. And sometimes to facilitate that process, you need to give a space and let people choose how they want to do it. And sometimes if they ask you for tools, feel free to show all the tools and for people to pick those that work the best for them. Yeah. So definitely good point from Aaron. We don't want to over control this creativity. Yeah. You just want to facilitate it, and you can sometimes give those tools. Okay.
And I think one of the challenges is that a lot of creativity in organizations is very binary. You have a lot of static behavior, and then there's this mad rush to say, let's go be creative, right? There isn't this natural evolution in the development of creative processes. I mean, these are fantastic tools. I've used a good chunk of them. I spent a lot of time doing stage gate stuff, actually, Dr. Cooper stuff. So it's, what I found is that the more you instrument creativity, the less creativity you get, right? Nobody ever put ridiculous constraints on Miles Davis when he was creating with John Coltrane and Charlie Parker and many other great, jazz, dozens of other great jazz, musicians, sort of an instrumentation process. They gave them the space, they gave them the tooling, like you said, but then they basically just gave them the support to figure it out. And I think that's part of this gap that we have in modern organizations is that we want experimentation with high certainty of
Yeah.
success. And the problem is that the majority of experimentation in our species history is between somewhere between 90 and 99.9% failure, which is okay because we're able to take that point 0.1 to 10% successes and reiterate on them to create enormous you know very few people go through all the failed rocket designs for the space program and say, yep, that was a failure, right? I mean, so it's this sort of intent we have to be so afraid of mistake making and how it affects sort of our institutional position within an organization, that then we wind up creating huge constraints on even trying or giving people space. So what happens, we just start reiterating basically safe ideas, and and then theater, and then creating a theater. I call it like basically creative theater. And then that's it. And we kind of stopped there and said, we were creative last year, and not as an ongoing kind of mission of being creative. The same way as being agile is supposed to be ongoing, well, being creative should be ongoing. So anyway, sorry to go over the deep end on that. I've just experienced that for decades in my career. So
I agree with you. I totally agree with you, Aaron. But the thing is that some things that I learned along the way is the corporate environment. So the basic stuff about the time, money, and quality. And then I got pressure from my manager, and then he's got pressure from his manager. And then if they don't perform, they don't get this yearly bonus, the annual bonus. So it's just the corporate environment. If something like musical Mozart or something like that, it wasn't in the corporate environment. I totally agree with you that we should get the time frame more flexible and things like that. But the thing is that the stakeholders already put in some money, things like that. So it's yeah, it's 21st century problem everywhere. Is the time, money, and then the quality, these three competing values that they want to achieve. I mean, but I agree with you because sometimes I think, yes, we need more time, but I'm under pressure, my boss under pressure, his boss is also under pressure. If we don't perform, we don't get the bonus and things like that. So yeah, that is just corporate environment, unfortunately.
what I found, and sorry, the last point here is that because there's a lack of what I call performance benchmarking across almost every institutional context, it doesn't matter what it is, public services, education, where you really don't measure like for like. And so what happens is people just have initiatives, and you're never able to sit there and say, well, we already aren't successful, and here's the reason why we're not. We're where we sit on the table of rankings, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always a measure for something, almost, and so whether it's vaccinations for 5-year-olds in Taiwan versus where you are, well, why are we where we are, and what's the instrumentation that creates that? There's almost no desire in almost any institutional context to actually ever do that outward sense making of performance benchmarking. And when you don't do that, you don't create this sort of internal driver to say, hey, how come we can't? How come they do? And what I found is if you don't have that, if you don't drive around those questions, then a lot of it just becomes theater because you don't have a driver to get somewhere. You're
Yeah,
getting somewhere.
but also, I don't agree with you is in something, Aaron, and is the thing like I do feel that performance can be a driver for asking inside how we can be better and do things better. But I think that's one of the drivers. But sometimes you are outperforming your market and still you want to keep differentiating, not for today, but for tomorrow. Hence, there, the driver is that differentiation or that leadership, right? So yes, which at the end will need performance, but given that you have it already here, it's kind of like even beyond that. So
Natasha, there's always somebody else outperforming the market too. So whatever that is, so you can always look at them and their behaviors. So even if they're not in the same thing you're doing, you can see others that are outperforming, and you could say, well, what are they doing and what are we not doing? And is that a gap, or is that something, or do we have an advantage, or whatever, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's always this sort of innate nature to try to constrain that outward looking performance is what I found. Even in some of the most successful organizations in the world, they really struggle, to go out and get people who do things differently. It's somewhere else, and then try to understand why they do it differently. And to me, that's the sort of innate challenge, and then the tooling kind of is the enabler of that. But if you don't have that sort of driver,
yeah.
I don't know how it's like almost what you're doing is trying to get creative to look for an outcome of the creativity versus the other way around, having an outcome you seek and then driving creativity towards it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But also, I think something to contemplate is like, as you mentioned, there are some organizations that, might not have that driver or that propensity at some stage. But there's also, change process that can be catalyzed. And I'm not saying here that can be achieved, by the way, because that's also very complex. And maybe, integrating these new approaches to the way of thinking what we're doing and how we're doing it can start breeding the seed. Yes, if it really generates that plant, I don't know, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of things that makes an organizational culture, that define what the organizational drivers are, and at the end how they're going to perform. There's a lot of things, but I think for today's session, what I wanted to put forward, and for us to think, and as you're doing it, question even as a community, is, what are kind of some tools that we could have at hand, facilitate and put at hands of others, and for them and the organization to decide, how to make use of it, so they can't get out of their head or get out of their group thinking. Yes, or at least question each other a little bit more, because this is something that a lot of organizations actually are struggling with. They say that they're customer centric, they said that they're pretty outward oriented, but many of us are working within our organizations and we know that that's still not happening. Yes, so maybe these are just little tools that can help people break out of their own mind, start listening to others, and just think a little bit different than how they're thinking things. Okay, but yeah, definitely uh, worth knowing. So just to give here a quick impression, as I mentioned, I'm going to share all of these notes with you. This is kind of a session, and look how interesting it is, because this is a brain silent writing, and this is why the design is going to matter. So, and it has to do with what Aaron says also. There's a little bit of control. Yeah, this is creative process, but there's control. So for example, in this brain silent writing, we had different team members, right? But as you see, there were different rounds. So already the rounds are conditioning the creative process, right? Because as Aaron says, in this part, we're doing 6 rounds, but we could have done 10 rounds, 5 rounds, 4 rounds, right? So there's some control or some intervention in the creative process. Yeah. But for this case, we agree as a team that we will do this number of rounds thinking about a problem. And what is the interesting thing is that all of these people have different personalities, right? Actually, those that tended to be kind of like more introverts are to your left, and those that tended to be more extrovert are to your right, right? This is how we organize then the results. And what you can see is that independently of their personality or whatever to the subject, each of the rounds were able to bring solutions, right? Interesting is that after this, we were able to cluster some of the solutions which have different colors right here that identify those clusters. In this case, I'm not showing those. And then pick, yes, what were the ones that were going to work. Yeah. So brain silent writing in that case, our brain writing allowed team members from different personalities to bring actually the same quantity, kind of like of solution, different qualities, yes, because they agree what were the ones that work for them the best, and then cluster both and get some solutions. Yeah. And what this did is question that idea that they were not able to generate solutions. They had a session and they came out with some solutions. Were they radical innovations? No, not really. But were they some solutions that fit their needs? They were, because they used them to solve the problem that they were trying to talk about. So that's also very important, to set the right expectation for the creative process. Creative process are not only to generate radical innovations. Sometimes creative process are good to generate what we call incremental innovations, sometimes architectural innovations, which is changing links, the components of things, so also make sure that you set the right expectations for your creative process. Okay, any questions from the team members of the community? Okay, right, so let's move to the other ones, because I know that we had until 4 and we're going only through these tools, which means that I might jump to the simulation and then we will have to proceed with another session on this for sure. So we have other thing that is called reverse brainstorming. And I really love this one, actually more than these other ones, because it taps into a natural bias that we have as human beings. I don't know if you guys have gone through this one, but actually this techniques kind of builds in our natural ability to spot problems and gaps more than solutions. So what this technique does is that it actually turns the question into a problem, and what team members have to do is ideate what could be actually the negative things that happen, the gaps that happen, and from then they're able to convert those gaps, those problems, those negative things actually in positive actions. Yeah. So rather than doing a brainstorming of like solutions, what you're doing is a brainstorming of problems, of gaps, or things that are not going to work. So you pose the question of a brainstorming as a negative question, so it's totally different, and it taps, as I mentioned, into our like totally normal bias of actually seeing the gaps. So I wanted to bring you here an example, which was very, very okay. Of course, sometimes I work kind of is like with like software teams, right? But you guys might have program teams, service teams, product teams, whatever, right? So you could see here that the reverse brainstorming, the funny thing is that they just list the gaps, the things, the problems that are not working, okay, and that you converted actually in positive ideas. So it's very funny, because usually for me the reverse brainstorming brings better ideas than the brainstorming. So it's very, very funny, but for some reason appealing to the negative actually ends up usually generating for me like more ideas. So this is quite funny tool. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like that for every team for sure, but I just wanted to post there for you guys that this is actually an option that you can have too, right? It's reverse brainstorming, so it's very different. Yeah. Something that I came across this year and I really, really liked, it was called a star bursting. I never used it before. This 2020 was the first year that I started using this. And it is a twist on the brainstorming. It kind of will encourage your team members to start their creative flowing, by asking questions, yes, actually, than by providing answers. And this is very interesting for me, because I started to see that sometimes the problem that I have it as a team member, and I think my team members too became aware, is that we want to just give solutions, but we never ask questions. We don't ask the right questions to our problems. So this techniques, actually what it does is that it foster or generates for team members to ask questions. Okay, so how does that kind of like look? Let me just show you in terms of a star dusting an example. Right. So what you usually would do is that you would put the problem statement here in the middle. And then what we will brainstorm is on key questions that we need to solve to actually solve that, you know. So, you know, when sometimes you have a math problem, but before that, you have to ask yourself things before, right? It's the same thing. So if we want to generate, how can we generate a successful new app launch, right? So then maybe we have to ask ourselves rather than just giving solutions some things before. So the brainstorming, in this case, the start bursting, is focused on that, on thinking what are the key questions that we must ask ourselves to solve this problem. And the cool thing about starbursting is that it gives you kind of like a structure. As I mentioned, you have some questions related to the who, to the what, to the where, to the when, to the why, and to the how. And then out of those questions, you can generate further questions, right? And by answering each of them, you have a better visibility, okay, of what can be solutions for the problem. Okay, so this is kind of like the first iteration here, as you can see. So you have different areas and you have some questions, but then you have a second iteration, talking about iteration, in which you think as teams further questions on that questions. Very interesting. Star bursting is quite hard, guys, for some teams. For some of my teams and myself, it was actually very hard at the beginning, because you are usually very used to either saying the gaps that there are there, you know, or the solutions that we can think of, not of asking key questions about the things. So a star bursting actually helps you that. So you are brainstorming key questions to your big question, okay? And after you have all those questions, you answer them as a team and you get a better visualization of approaches to the problem, right? So something here to share with you, as you maybe go about into your exploration of these techniques. Some like pro things that I found about this technique is that it's okay, it's pretty good for exploring when you're in that exploration phase of, you know, a product or a problem that you guys need to solve, you know, a business case that you need to solve. It really makes it very easy to generate focused questions that deserve attention about that product that you want to explore. The problem with this, okay, is that star bursting is not meant to be a tool that supports any planning, like that helps you plan with the team, or that really will allow you to get out of that session with some kind of like clear timeline, goals, project. No. So if you're kind of looking out, you know, for a session that generates you, no, this is creativity. Okay, so it's gonna generate options, new questions, but that's what it's going to generate. So be very careful when you use this tool to have the right expectations of what you can get out of it. And to be honest, what this tool has helped the most is to bring the to strengthen the muscle of questioning by my team, of my team being able to ask questions and explore more about a product. So this one has had a big impact in setting the habit of what are key questions that we should maybe explore, ask, okay, when we are approaching problems, right? And creating that habit, I think it has been more powerful because it has made us more aware that sometimes it's better to have questions that just answers. Okay. So I think that's kind of like the cool thing about creativity. And to be honest, there have been some questions that have emerged about a problem that we needed to solve that we didn't thought at the beginning, and they were key actually to make the product successful. Then we saw like, wow, if we hadn't asked that, this would have been a big problem, you know. So it can be useful for that. All right. Any question until now, team? Okie dokie. So the other one that is quite interesting is what we call the charrette procedure. Has anyone been exposed to this one? So if you have had the issue that suddenly you had in your brainstorming more than 15 people, right? And you were trying to, you know, get to see like how we could think and share ideas in a more orderly way, actually the charrette procedure is one that can help you alleviate this. Okay. Some people also have used partly what is a charrette procedure as a world coffee, you know, like as a world coffee. But it's kind of like follows the same. It follows the same procedure. So you can use the charrette procedure when you want a lot of people to come together and to brainstorm or ideate on different topics at the same time, and for these topics to go through all of them. Yes. So what do I mean? I actually love this one. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I love this one and I think it's great. Okay. So you basically have a bunch of topics that you have questions, right? This emerged recently in my organization. So how are we going to commercialize this? What changes we need to do in this project, in this product? How can we improve our innovation skills? What are the bottlenecks for curiosity? So you have different topics, right? And then you bring all the people and you put them in different teams, or you allow them to pick their team. Usually I allow them to pick their teams, name their houses, what I call, you know, each of you are tribes, each of you are houses, put your names, each of them, you know, people get creative, they put their names for their creative session, and it's always lovely. So you have very crazy names, and which is good. So, okay, so they divide themselves in those groups, and then you allow them to pick those topics that they're more interested to begin the first iteration, right? So imagine you have 5 different teams, each of them have 5 people, and they have different topics. Yeah, you assign those topics, good. Then you time box, you know, you give them, all right, you break them into rooms. Then they have, you know, up to 10 minutes to kind of discuss and brainstorm on that topic. Great. After 10 minutes, you bring them back, and guess what? They get other topic. Yeah. And each team goes through the 5 different topics, or through the 4 different topics, or the 3 different topics that you go. And you cannot imagine the amount of solutions that you can find, and also the amount of common things, yeah, that at the end allows you to see which are, you know, quick wins that you didn't detect, that people, even as they went, even if they were different people, they all saw the same things, right? So that's actually quite useful. So usually you have different topics. You let all the teams go through all those different topics, they all brainstorm on it, but then very interesting, you all come together to see the collation, what you got from all of them after they saw the different topics. And then you together prioritize, you know, what are the things that we believe are feasible, are high impact, it's going to make a difference. And then there you go, you got like a set of solutions for those things that you were seeking to solve. Now, this one is not a quick one to do though, guys. So this usually can take, you know, 2 hours, 1 hour and a half. So it's one process that you have to make sure that people are well rested, that they are in the mood. Don't put it late in the afternoon. Really give all the guidance before to the team members. Send them ahead the topics, so when they engage in their first iteration with the topic, they with the one that they're more excited about. Put the right briefing to the problem so people understand a little bit more what they're trying to solve, and when they make the picking, they pick the one that they think they can contribute the most value. You have to create the good you know, like make sure that the breakout rooms and the templates that they're going to fill, either in mural or Jamboard, they're well designed, yes, so you can collate properly all the ideas, yeah. But the charrette procedure is actually super good to help with that management of big ideations, because you have several teams and you need them to go through the topics. Okay, so that's one that I put you there because I thought it was useful. Okay, anyone has used the charrette procedure and can share some of the pitfalls that it has, because it does have some pitfalls that are actually very important to discuss. Anyone? So one pitfall that you can have with this one is that actually some people don't like to switch topics. So naturally, there's team members that are switchers. You can switch them from topic to topic, right? And they get stimulated by it and they generate lots of ideas. There's other team members that really, when you switch them from topic to topic, actually they get a little bit overwhelmed. So you have to make sure also not to be switching people between 10 topics. Yes. So, pick those key topics, 2, 3, 5 top, because if you're switching people a lot, there might be a problem there. Also, because you're going to be managing big groups, right? Make sure to break the groups, right? So if you have a group of 15 people, if you have 5 groups of 15 people, the charrette procedure is not going to work for you, because actually the charrette is to break the big groups into very small. So you want 5 top 7 people, right? So make sure that if you break into groups, big amount of people, you still make those groups small. So that's another important thing. And the thing is the timing, rotating people, right? Rotating people across the themes is also something here. Any comments?
Natasha, can you put everyone on mute? There's just a ton of background noise.
Okay, so let me see who has, yeah, let me see here if I can put a team member. All right, so let me see here our participants. All right, team members, I'm going to mute you, but if you need anything to say, you can unmute yourself. Okay, there you go. Okay, clear. Awesome. So the other cool tool is what we call the crawl first leap writing method. It's actually not too different from the common like brainstorming. The thing is that it is more scoped, the whole process that you have. This one was actually recommended by me by another Scrum Master, but still I wanted to bring it to you so you could use it. The cool thing actually about this method is when you do it physically, right? Nowadays, we know that we have to do it all online. So you can use still your mural boards or your mural boards for people to do this. Here, the important thing is the limits that you set to the people. So different from the normal brain writing that you just let them write whatever they want, they actually have to put like one sentence. So there's a way in which they have to structure the ideas that they provide. So this is very funny because it comes back to what Aaron was saying, like we're controlling the creative process, let them be. But yeah, so according to Craft or Sleep method, what you would do is like when you have the different team members and they want to express their ideas or the solution to a key question that you put. So when they put it in the little sticky, the best thing is for team members to really try to lean the idea down to a sentence. So that process of people having to try to refine and lean down the idea, he thought it was very powerful because then it allows you to, yes, get more ideas, but they're more precise and easy to understand from everyone. And from there on to build the groupings, the themes, and what was more important, the sorting of the ideas. The interesting thing about this is that the consolidation of the categories in this method, very important, it's written or it's agreed by all the team members, okay? And that's something that at the beginning wasn't done in other brainstormings. It was crowd for that proposed that first thing, like let people be the one that consolidate the categories. And this is what made this approach so important. Nowadays, we all do that, guys, or the majority of us do that. You let the teams consolidate their own themes and categories and then put the definition or the description of that theme and category. But that wasn't done, for example, in the 80s. Yeah. And this is where it comes from. And this is what made it so kind of like useful and good, right? So this is one thing. The other thing is that you had like different colors for the cards, right? So some of them were red and it was to put the idea. Some of them, so they were red and you had to put the idea, then they had to be one sentence, and then they had to have the explanation of what it was meant with it. So as you see, the ideas were more a structure in how they're presented to other team members. And I bet you this is a problem that some of you face in your brainstorming, because I have faced it too. Sometimes people put in the sticky things that we don't even understand. So it doesn't even allow us to build on top of that. So what Crowd First Lead seeks to overcome is that issue of sometimes people just put in a word in the sticky, but you don't even get an idea as a team member of how you can build on top of it or not. So it gives a structure of how to share your idea in that post-it that you are going to put there to co-create with team members solutions. Yeah. So let me just show you here, because it's very funny. Some of you are gonna laugh. Look at this. Look at this. It's very, very funny. So you have a kind of a process. Yes, like, well, grid in one sentence, make sure that it is kind of like explained, and so that kind of helps, you know, filter or write better the ideas of people. So this was used also in Stanford, by the way, so I thought it was very engineering, a very engineer approach. This is something that I don't use, but I respect that some people use it as a creativity tool, hence I brought it to you. I think you still can let people, you know, write whatever they want in the sticky. The important thing of the creativity session is the discussion and the building on top that sometimes come out of it. But, you know, if you're trying to document, I think the Crawford Sleep allows to document the creative idea for sure. And it even gives a process. But there you go. That's an option that is also considered there to generate a lot of ideas. The other tools that we're going to overview very quickly to wrap up this part is what we call role storming. So it's a brainstorming, but people here have assigned roles. Okay. So you that are the customer, how do you think you, Chiti, you're going to be the customer for this session. Abad, you're going to be the product owner. Aaron, you're going to be our investor. Okay. And Leo, you are going to be, the CEO. So let's brainstorm here ideas. So everyone has a role, and given that role, they provide ideas to the problem. So this turned out to be a quite interesting creative tool. It was created by Rick Griggs, and it's basically because it seems that when we put ourselves in the shoes of other people, we tend to be less shy to share ideas. Yeah. So it seems that it works better for us to provide ideas when we play to be someone else. Yeah. So that's the reason that it was behind it. It tends to be very funny also when you do it even digital and you assign people different roles, hats. This helps to come up with better ideas, and people have fun. The truth is that this helps to have fun as you are creating and generating ideas, especially if the roles that you put have funny names or etc. Yeah, so it helps on that. Okay. Now, guys, I'm looking at the time. That is 4. Okay. So before, I think we're gonna have a chance just to kind of like go over the tools today. And if it's okay with you, we're gonna have to look over the process in another session. And it's a shame because I wanted to actually go with you over the Disney creative strategy. I think it's super cool. The Dublin 10 types of innovation, I think is great for creativity and trust. But given the time, I will just make sure that you have the content. And if it's okay, we can come together and discuss it in a session. Yeah. Just to be mindful of the time. Is it okay with you guys if I just go maybe over O'Connor's 7 essential questions and Scamper? Yeah, I think it's super cool promise. And this is why I want to share with you about it. So some of you are here. So we have O'Connor 7 essential innovation questions. Does anyone have an idea who Bill O'Connor is? All right, so I think Aaron, you're gonna like this guy. Okay, so basically, he was kind of the corporate strategy from Autodesk corporate team, and he is the one that actually is part of the Innovation Genome Project, right? So these people took this was kind of, he led a team that put together a study of what is called more than 1 million years of humanity innovation, right? So they really went about like all the innovations that had occurred in 1 million years, which I thought it was super funny. And they actually lean down all those innovations to what was the 1,000 greatest innovations of all times, right? And they even have a list, which I thought, yeah, they're right. I mean, many of them I really liked. I will send you the link to the Innovation Genome Project. It's amazing. So basically what they found is that to generate innovations or creativity, to generate innovation, those that they conceive the most creative people in history usually go through 7 main questions. So when they were like reading or interviewing those that are still alive, of course, a lot of them were already dead. Right? But when they went through the process of studying those innovations, the biography, etc., so they found that usually people that are highly creative, they go through 7 main questions. Yeah. And they are, how can we look at things in a new way? The second one is, how could we use this in a new way? The third one, what can we move or change in terms of time, positioning, view? Okay. The fourth question was, what could we interconnect in a different way? That one for me was fascinating, by the way. I don't know, but it's true. Like, what could we interconnect in a different way? Then what could we alter or change, right? Then what could we make that is truly new? And then finally, what could we imagine to create that generates a different experience? So it seems that, as you see, people that are highly creative ask themselves questions, ask themselves a lot of questions, right? And what seems to be the pattern is that highly creative people had these 7 questions associated to them, yeah, to their innovations. Each of their innovations responded to 7 questions, and even some of the biographies and some of the interviews that they had show that people were kind of like asking themselves this as they were going through their creative process. So it's very interesting maybe to notch our teams, right, with that question setup. Some of you said that you are coaches. Amazing, because then, you know, coaching sometimes is about making those powerful questions. So this means that sometimes creating those spaces for questions can be very powerful to enhance the creativity of our teams. As Aaron mentioned, this doesn't mean that we're going to achieve creativity by just putting these questions, right? But this maybe can help our team start having in their mindset ways in which they can approach problems and ideas different. So these 7 questions, the O'Connor 7 essential innovation questions, might be things that you can use as a leader, as a coach, as a manager, as someone that is supporting your team, so they can rethink how to do things. Yeah. The other technique is what we call the scamper technique. And I'll bring you here a graph. Here you go, scamper technique. And I like these ones that are very visual, because some of the team members that I have, sometimes visual things speak more to them. And this actually what does is that it nudges your team member as they face a problem or they're questioning something, to ask themselves different things. Yeah. So it's, what could substitute this problem or this idea? How could we combine things? How could we adapt? How could we magnify this? What other uses can we give to this? How can we eliminate, reduce, make more lean this? How can we rearrange things? So going through these different questions, because it's again questions, substitute, combine, how do we do this? Yeah, allows to kind of think how we could approach that problem, or how could we make that product work differently. Yeah, I think this is actually quite powerful in the case of products, and also in the case of marketing campaigns. I've used them for those too. Of course, you guys can make use of this technique for different things, and I found it very powerful, right? Because it seems like it really fits as a creative tool for team members to rethink these areas, and then they come up with their sticky with very different things and even themes on how to do each of these things. Yeah. And it generates the strategies also for the campaign or for the products. So it depends, yeah, on what you're trying. I've used it for those, but this creative tool, you can use it for several things. Yeah. So that's what we call the scamper technique. Okay. A lot of questions I will share you with you in the notes. Okay. So I think for today, because it's 4, we won't be able to keep on going. But if all of you agree, we could just put a second round, because I would love for us to first overview what is called the reframing matrix. It's a bit more complex, so it requires some time to just get through it. The other one of attribute listing, a morphological analysis, because I have a little template that you can use, but we need to get hands-on, okay, or a simulation. And then you have the different processes, which require a little bit more time. Exciting for you to check out before we have the next session. Check out Tris, pretty cool, promise. And you can check out Dublin's 10 types of innovation and the Disney strategy. Yeah, sounds good? Cool. All right, guys. So any question, any consideration that you have as leaders now after we have this session?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you so much, guys, for bringing actually your experience. Thank you, Aaron, for also letting us know, what some things that haven't worked for you and that we have to, I think you're right. We have to fight the bias to control the creativity too. Mahat, you had something there that you wanted to share?
No, I don't. I was just almost relaxing now.
Hi, Natasha. It's Louisa. I just want to add a very, very quick item. So I am an industrial designer, basically, but I am also a computer scientist. So the key nowadays in being, in this environment in Agile is actually to bring in the creativity. So what I would like to tell Aaron and the rest of the team, if you did not know up until now, creativity, because I studied 4 years in industrial design, Bauhaus school. It is a learned method. Anyone can do it, exactly as we learn computer science, and we spend so many years there learning rules and tools. That's exactly how we do in creativity, and that's why we are so creative. So the power of knowing the tools that Natasha is telling you, and I will be able to share with her, I'm going to send only you, Natasha, and then you can send it to the team, are all these a few books in design, or this one's the design thinking tool books. Yes. And that's what you are going to like as well, Rod Jenkins, which is my favorite. So that's how you learn all these tools. And whenever you are in all your meetings, in the Agile meetings, you know which one to pop up, which one to use. So that is the key. Everyone can be creative. A lot of my friends, they are asking me, how come you do all these fantastic designs on the whiteboard and all these things? Yeah, fine, because I'm a designer. But the creativity, the way you do it, it's exactly how we learned the Toyota kata. The same process as we are using in the scientific discovery, regardless of what I want to discover. We are using a process as we are using in design, the 6 steps, ideation and all that. That's what all I do. So you guys, anyone can do it, right? Just learn the processes. And I'm very glad that Natasha is sharing all these things now. And then in the next session, this is what I'm looking, you can share with us, how do they look, on Miro? How do you do it? And show, please, a few screens so people can see actually and link it to, I know exactly how I am going to use it in my next meeting. But when you walk in a meeting, sometimes you do not know what you're going to use, right? Depending on your folks, in what mood they are and all that. But all the time you're going to switch depending on the mood or what you want to get out of that meeting, right? So that's all from my point. I'll send you all these, a few photos with all these books that I am using. All of them are designed in the visual meetings and all that. And then you can share it with the team, and you guys, you can either pop them from the library firstly, so you can look at them and then buy them, right? Because they are the ones that are used in Europe, and that's why I like the design thinking toolbox and also the practices, because it's not only from the three authors, you know, it stands for the university, but it is with 200 people from designers from all over Europe, and mainly from UK. You guys who are in the UK, I always spend a lot of time in training in UK. I'm coming over twice per year. And you are using, you have all these tools, one page for another tool, one page for another tool, and then you're going to learn them and use them, which ones you actually feel comfortable.
Yeah, Luisa, actually, let me tell you, a big fan of it too. Like,
it is.
I would put it in the list of reference too. I think Luisa is right. This has helped so much our product teams. We have developed our journey and gotten better thanks so much to design thinking and the great work that it's been done. Also, this book is great because it has the templates, how you can use it. And I will take actually what your recommendation in the next meeting that we have with this. I usually share the murals with the little templates, but I will put the templates because you're right. This can help us more as practitioners to go about in our selection and in the sorting with the problem.
Right. Beautiful.
Amazing. All right. Any other sharing that you want to give, guys, with each other? No? All right. So thank you so much. As mentioned, this is our community. Thank you, Luisa, for actually coming also and sharing the knowledge. We build together. We're all working. So anything that we want to share with each other, let's do it, because this makes us better in our work. And this is a shared journey. Okay. So have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy.
You too.
Sometime tomorrow, next week, Natasha, Sunday as well.
Yeah. So do you think, like, should I put this one
Saturday?
for next week? Yeah. Should I put this one for next week, the second part? Yeah, for Saturday, because Friday sometimes I get like emails at 12 like, hey, can you put it more at 7, at 6, because it's Friday, whatever. So I think I'm gonna leave it in the weekend if everyone can. Okay, because
Saturday is great.
All right, super.
Because
all right,
I'm not dating, so I don't have anything to do for the night. So I can think about that design thinking toolbox.
Leah, are you proposing yourself here to some other?
No,
I think so.
Because Natasha already showed her husband. I'm not saying anything. I don't have any hidden agenda. I'm just saying my situation. I think Saturday is great.
All right, yeah, you actually brought me to mind that we have to do like a little Agile party or something like that. We haven't done it. All right, happy Saturday, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.